Hey everybody, Miss Mo back with you to continue the story of the Passover and how it's remembered with the Seder Supper. So the Seder Supper that we usually celebrate together, but of course we're not now. Um, the Seder Supper is the supper that Jesus was having at his Last Supper with the disciples. So when we celebrate that as Catholics, the Last Supper of Jesus, that's the supper, the Seder Supper, the remembering of the story of Moses and their freedom march. So the Seder Supper, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it is, what it means. Before I go on, make sure you've clicked on the video that gives you some background on this supper, and then come back to me and we'll dive a little bit deeper into this story of the first Seder Supper. So Seder means order, right? This meal has order from the beginning until the end. And you'll notice in your takeout, there's little pieces of food, a plate that has all the different foods on there. And we'll go through it a little bit now and what each food means. So I have the real thing here. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what's called, I think it's called the karpas, Karpas. I think I'm saying that right, the karpas, which is usually parsley, right? A spring green to represent flourishing, but also the parsley is considered a bitter herb. And this bitter herb is dipped into some salt water at this meal, and the salt water represents the tears that the Israelites shed during their time in slavery. And then we have the haraset. The haraset is it's like an applesauce concoction, and it's usually a mix of fruits, wine, honey, nuts, and it symbolizes the mortar that the Israelite slaves used to construct the buildings for the Pharaoh, because they built all that stuff was built on slave labor. After that, we have more bitter herbs in the form of horseradish. Again, the bitterness of slavery. And then we have the shank bone, the lamb bone. It serves as a reminder of the sacrifice that the Israelites offered before leaving Egypt, and also the lamb's blood that was used to mark the doors of the Hebrew people so the angel of death would pass over. And then we have, and I have this really cool plate too, that you can get these as well. I'm not sure exactly what your plate looks like, but this is something I ordered just as a reminder of the different foods put on the plate. So then we have, after the shank bone, we have the baitza, which is actually Hebrew for egg. And there's a little picture of an egg, but usually the egg is not opened. It's round, and the roundness of the egg represents the cycle of life. Even in the most painful times, there is always hope for a new beginning. And then on the table too, we have matzah, right? The matzah, the unleavened bread, because on that night, that Passover night, the Israelites did not have time to wait for the dough to rise. So they had to bake it as it is. And this is the bread they ate and took with them the next day on their way to freedom. So matzah, it's a very bland, dry tasting cracker bread. And on the table too is the wine. So important, the wine, where 4 cups will be had throughout the meal, each representing a different promise from God. The first cup is the cup of blessing, the second cup, the cup of memory, the third cup, the cup of redemption, and the fourth cup, the cup of hope and freedom. So those are the foods and drinks and the symbolism that goes with them. And so then we are ready to begin Seder Supper with the Haggadah. This is the book that tells the story. Everyone gets one. And we begin. And it begins with, the order is, the lighting of the candle and a blessing. I will bring you out of Egypt. I will free you from slavery. I will save you with my outstretched arm, and I will take you to be my people. So the candle lighting, the blessing, and then the first cup of wine. And after each, with each cup of wine, there is the blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, creator of fruit of the vine. And then we have the washing of the hands, some reading from scripture, and then the bitter herbs, which we talked about. The parsley being dipped into the salt water and the harisset. Then we share the matzah, parsley, and then matzah and harisset. Make sure you have it in the right order. And eventually you make a little sandwich with the matzah and the harisset and the parsley as we continue on with the story of the Exodus, which we are not going to read. You guys know the story now, but there's questions here that are asked, and Mrs. Cloutier in a different link is going to do these questions with you. So make sure you click on there. These are really cool questions to think about and reflect on and, tell your story with. Really important. And the children are a big part of this celebration, and it's kind of handing the story down to the children. And then we come to the Dayenu. Dayenu, that would have been enough. That's what it means. That would have been enough. And I'm going to read this because this is really cool too, and we should know this. We remember the many gifts that God has given us. If God had just taken us out of Egypt and given us the gift of freedom we'd been dreaming of, that would have been enough. Dayenu. If God had led us across the Red Sea and hadn't taken care of us in the desert for 40 years, that would have been enough. Dayenu. If God had given us the Sabbath without giving us the Torah, that would have been enough. Dayenu. If God had given us the Torah and hadn't led us to the land of Israel, that would have been enough. Dayenu. But God gave us all these gifts and more, and for that we say thank you. Right? That's just a great practice right there to remember to practice an attitude of gratitude. So then we have more symbolism with the foods that we went over already, and then the second cup, the cup of memory, and more blessings with that. And then we have the roast lamb. Here we have the dinner. So we practice the part of eating the dinner. And then this is the part here too where you find the afikomen. This matzah is broken into pieces, and a piece of that is wrapped and hidden for the kids to find, for the children to go and find, and that represents that hidden. The spirit is hidden where really it's hidden out in the open, and we have to just know and look for that. And then we come to the third cup, the cup of redemption. And this cup is important because it is with this cup that Jesus took the third cup and raised it and said, "Take this, this is my blood," and passed it to his disciples. And this is the cup where he brought in the new covenant, where he gave the commandment to love one another as he has loved us. The third cup of wine. I love just stopping and thinking about that. And I visualizing that happening. That's just something. And then we have the cup of Elijah, which this is a cup that's inside your takeout as well, that you can use when you eat and drink. You can use however you want. I have a cup of Elijah. This is actually in a family chalice that we have from a member who used to be a priest. But I love this chalice. It just reminds me of Elijah's cup. So that's what I call it now, Elijah's cup. So your cup, whatever you want to do with it, keep it on your bureau, in the kitchen. It's to remember, right? Remember the story. And Elijah's cup is now filled, and it's filled in the hope that the prophet will come soon. The door is opened. The kids go and open the door, and they look for Elijah. But Elijah's cup and Elijah, this moment is kind of the hope and the waiting for the Messiah to come, right? We know Jesus. now, and we're waiting for him to come the second time. But for those who don't know Jesus yet and wait, this is the cup of hope. And then we have the fourth cup, and this is the cup of hope and freedom. And then blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And then the dinner is over, the end of Seder. And we say we are thankful for the Seder meal and the story we heard. We look forward to peace and love and kindness until the next time we gather again to celebrate our history as God's children, right? The story of us. I love Seder. I love the Seder meal and everything that it represents, and remembering the story. It's good stuff, and how this is a connection to our story now, in the story of Easter and our beliefs in Jesus. And that's it. I hope you guys learned a lot here, and I hope you guys have a great Easter season coming up. We have really been through it this past year, and we have a lot to celebrate with the vaccine coming, and being made available to more and more people, and coming out the other end of this really tough time. We can kind of reflect and connect to the story, and we're grateful. And that's it. Happy Easter, you guys. I can't wait to see you again. I can't wait till we're together again and you guys can be interacting more. We love you, and we'll see you soon. Happy Easter. Mwah.